you move your mouse, you double click that orange AI icon on your desktop, you wait a few seconds, and there it is. Adobe Illustrator opens up, and you stare at what's on screen. It's super confusing. There are icons everywhere, there are pop-ups. Suddenly your chest begins to tighten. Maybe your palms even get a little sweaty. And before you even decide to click on anything, you quietly slide your cursor up to the left-hand corner and you click the X to close down the program. Does that sound familiar at all? If it does, I want you to take a deep, deep breath because you are not alone. I have a little bit of a story to tell, and it might sound like a complete tangent, but hang with me here. When I was just 8 years old, my family packed up our entire life and moved from upstate New York to Brussels, Belgium. And my mom, who was a very independent woman, was absolutely determined that her 3 daughters, my brother was much, much younger, would become truly fluent in French. So she didn't enroll us in an international expat school with an English safety net. No. She threw us straight into the local French school system. Total immersion. And it was terrifying. I didn't speak a single word of French. But on my very first day, I noticed another little girl who also looked just as shell-shocked as I felt. She was from Israel, and she was just learning how to speak French as well. We found each other. We were just 2 little girls who were clinging to each other like life rafts in a massive sea of sounds we didn't understand. I vividly remember my head hurting during the first several months. It was because I was trying to absorb a brand new language, 8 hours a day. My brain was working overtime. But you know what? My mom was right. Immersion does work. You just have to keep showing up. And you have to give yourself grace. And slowly, bit by bit, words started to stick. Then phrases. Until one day, months later, I realized I was thinking and dreaming in French without even trying. I didn't learn it all at once. I learned it one day at a time. And most importantly, I never could have done it alone. Welcome to the Creative Business Spark podcast. I'm LaFollette, creative entrepreneur, online educator, and business coach. After getting laid off in my late 50s, I found myself adrift with no income and no sense of self. But my mom always said, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep moving forward. So I decided to reinvent myself and build an online creative business from scratch. Now I help women like you do the same. This podcast is where art, mindset, and entrepreneurship meet. I'll share behind-the-scenes lessons, inspiring stories, mindset shifts, and more. Let this be the spark you need to build or grow a creative business with joy and purpose. Let's dive in because it's never too late to create. Welcome back to the Creative Business Spark podcast. I wanted to share that childhood memory with you because learning Adobe Illustrator feels exactly like being dropped into a foreign school at the age of 8. If opening up Adobe Illustrator makes your head spin, I need you to hear me. You do not need to learn the entire program. Today, we're going to dive deep into 3 steps that I teach inside my Doodles Coaching week that take you from completely overwhelmed to creating your first beautiful repeating pattern. So grab a notebook, get comfortable, and let's conquer this tech intimidation together. Step number 1 is a phrase my students hear me say over and over again. Keep it simple. We can always get fancy later. Because here is a classic trap I see happen every single time a new creative sits down to learn digital design. She opens Illustrator, starts dreaming up this grand design, and suddenly she is entirely stuck in her own head. She thinks it has to be a masterpiece. It needs to be a gorgeous bouquet of flowers. Because she's hearing in the back of her mind, what if my art isn't good enough? Let me stop you right there. The ultimate secret to breaking through that initial wall of tech fear is the fact that your very first pattern really shouldn't have anything to do with the art itself. Meaning, I want you to focus on learning the process. Inside Illustrator, creating a repeating pattern requires a highly specific sequence of steps to make it work seamlessly. You can't skip any of the steps. You have to have a lot of attention to detail, and you need to do the steps in order because you're working with a computer. So every single click matters. Because your brain is working so hard to learn the technical sequence, you need to make the artwork as simple as possible. One shape, maybe two shapes, a max of 3 motifs. That's all you need. You don't need anything super complicated. I don't want you to be using 10 different motifs. And why, you might be asking? Because I want your brain to not be distracted by what the design is going to look like. I want it to be completely free and focused to absorb the technical steps. Because the fancy design can come later, I promise. Here's an example I want to share with you from one of my students whose name is Asha. She's a wonderful designer who went through my Doodles program, and she had actually learned how to paint traditional analog pattern repeats years before she found me. She is incredibly talented. But when the entire textile and design industry shifted over to digital software, Adobe Illustrator stopped her dead in her tracks. She told me, in the past, I learned to paint repeats, but got discouraged when they first introduced Illustrator because it was difficult to understand. So I quit design altogether. Think about how heartbreaking that is. She didn't just take a break, she quit entirely, walking away from an industry that she loved simply because one piece of software made her feel like she didn't belong. But when Asha decided to try one more time and come into my Doodles Coaching Week, everything changed. By stripping away the complexity, she finally found her footing. She wrote to me and said, "You explained it very well, in detail, and I understood how to create my finished pattern. The steps are very thorough, and in the end, I actually built a pattern, and I also didn't get bored in the process." She built a pattern from scratch because she trusted the power of simplicity. And guess what? Cognitive science completely backs this up. Famous studies in education and psychology show that when learners are introduced to complex new skills through reduced complexity, their ability to retain and apply that data increases significantly. Simple isn't a shortcut. Simple is a highly sophisticated learning strategy. Once those baseline steps are locked into your muscle memory, the sky is the limit, and you can get as fancy as you want. This brings us to step number 2. Give yourself grace and let your brain assimilate what you're learning. Can I tell you something that I hope brings immense comfort to you right now? If your head literally hurts when you're trying to learn Adobe Illustrator, that is not a sign that you aren't capable. It is not proof that you aren't tech savvy. That headache is proof that your brilliant brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Remember, Illustrator is a language. When you learn a new language as an adult, your brain has to work overtime to build entirely new neural pathways and forge brand new cognitive connections. It's exhausting work. I felt it in Brussels as an 8-year-old child, and my adult students feel it every single cohort. And if you feel it, it means you're actually on the right track. This is exactly why inside the Doodles Coaching Week, I build in a mandatory rule. We take the entire weekend off. It's on purpose, not because we run out of material, but because rest is an active part of the learning process. When you intentionally step away from the screen and let yourself breathe, a beautiful phenomenon called memory consolidation happens. Neuroscience shows that new data moves from your fragile short-term memory into your permanent long-term memory most powerfully during periods of rest. Your brain keeps working for you long after you close your laptop. You come back on Monday after the weekend off, and suddenly the tool that felt impossible on Friday starts to click. I love the story of Anna. Anna spent her career in the highly analytical, high-pressure world of medical laboratories and industrial manufacturing. She had a deep love for traditional arts like calligraphy, and she desperately wanted to learn pattern design. But every time she looked at Adobe Illustrator, tech fears and tech intimidation took over. She told me, "First, I want to become very familiar and proficient with Adobe Illustrator. Right now, I find it somewhat intimidating. I thought I needed to go to college for another 4 years to learn how to use it." Think about that. 4 years of college just to learn one software program. That is what tech intimidation does. It makes a perfectly doable, step-by-step skill feel like an insurmountable mountain to a brilliant woman. But when Anna found a structured patient environment, like the Doodles Coaching Week, the intimidation melted away. She realized she did not need a 4-year degree. She just needed structure, a clear path, step-by-step guidance, and the grace to be a beginner. Give your brain the time to rest and assimilate, and it will catch up. It actually always does. Step number 3 is it's so important to keep moving forward. Here's the most beautiful thing about Adobe Illustrator. And this can sometimes be really frustrating, but it's also really the most beautiful thing about it. It's a computer program, and computers are wonderfully, gloriously, beautifully literal. They possess zero emotion. They don't have good days or bad days. They simply do exactly what you tell them to do in the exact order you tell them to do it. So what does this mean for you? It means that when you follow a proven sequence of steps with attention to detail, without skipping ahead, the result is mathematically guaranteed. Your pattern will repeat perfectly every single time. This should take a massive weight off your shoulders. Your success in digital pattern design is not a matter of raw tech talent or past experience. It is simply a matter of following instructions, staying focused, and keeping a glass of water nearby to keep your mind sharp. I always encourage everyone to stay hydrated. I have been running the Doodles Coaching Week for years now, and thousands of women have come through my digital doors. And every single time, the results are phenomenal. Women who swore they were tech-illiterate end the week uploading finished, gorgeous repeating patterns into our community group. And yes, I give homework because action is the ultimate antidote to fear. I want to share a note from a recent student named Rebecca, who actually broke protocol and wrote to me before she even submitted her homework assignment. She wrote, "Before I do the homework, I just want to say thank you. I've watched a lot of vids and tutorials over the years, but yours is by far the clearest and the most precise. I have hundreds of designs that were not quite right, and now I have confidence that I can bring those to their full potential. You've unlocked some features of Illustrator for me that were not covered in the class I took on it years ago. Then there's Debbie, who had never even opened the program before. She said, before taking the Doodles to Dollars coaching week, I had never opened the Adobe Illustrator program. It was like learning a foreign language. Within the program, I had introduced myself to Illustrator, and now I am on my way to learning how to create beautiful artwork for stationery products, fabrics, notebook covers, wrapping papers, and so much more. Anne is an amazing teacher. Just during the Doodles coaching week, she went from absolute zero to realizing her art could live on notebook covers, wrapping paper, fabric, and more. That is what happens when you trust that the steps are your guarantee. As we wrap up today's episode, here is what I want you to remember. You do not need to master 100% of what Adobe Illustrator is capable of. You only need to master the specific steps that will allow you to unlock beautiful, sellable, repeating patterns. Imagine sitting down at your computer next week, opening up Adobe Illustrator, the very program that used to make your chest feel tight. And instead of closing it down in fear, you create something finished, something beautiful, something that belongs on a tea towel, a greeting card, or fabric that you turn into a blouse. If you're ready to stop letting a computer program stand between you and your creative dreams, come join me for our next Doodles coaching week. It is completely designed for beginners, and right now you can lock in your spot for the limited time early bird price of just $37. Head over to members.artwithanne.com/doodles to enroll, or just click the link right below in the show notes. I've also pinned it to the top of the comments here on YouTube. Before you go, I'd also love to hear from you. What is the single thing about Adobe Illustrator that feels the most intimidating to you right now? Leave a comment below. I read every single one, and I would love to know. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. If you're listening to the audio podcast, please share it with a friend. Maybe this is the exact message they need to hear today. I always like to say in closing that I am Anne LaFollette. And remember, it's never too late to create. That's it for today, and I'll see you again next week.